is happening in the world of AI. So I will tell you, it is it's scary. It really is seeing a lot of the newest stuff. Let me show you something. Now I shared this a little bit earlier today on my Discord. All right, so actively trying to build conscious robots. I feel as if machine learning and artificial intelligence have always been a journey to try to reach this stage. They've always been an attempt, even computers in general. Everything that I've seen since messing with computers from the time I was a kid, everything about a computer is an attempt to create a human-like thinking machine. And everything that we've created, whether it's a processor or a RAM chip, if you think about it enough, there's symbology that links it to some kind of part of the human mind. Whether short-term memory becomes RAM, a processor becomes the human brain, things like that. In a biological machine, things are just kind of combined. Anyway, I say all that to say that I don't think that this goal should come as a surprise to anyone. I just think it's kind of straightforward. Here we are. Now we're literally trying to do this. Kind of cool that it might happen during my lifetime. There's also there's also that scary aspect of it though, where it's just like, um, will the super rich, for example, once you have the ability to potentially, let's say we have an understanding of the human mind and we're able to move consciousness from one body to another, like once we can spec apart the human brain and have a good understanding of how much memory do you have, how much storage space, what is your processing power, those types of things where we can make a straight one-on-one comparison with terminology that we use for modern computers. It'll be easier to determine whether or not we've built something that is technically better or not, right? And I think eventually we will build something better. And it will be a tempting thing to want to take my consciousness and want to say, like, oh, okay, let's transfer into this better thing and see what that new world is like. Um, who's to say if we'll ever get there? But the future is looking creepy. I think a lot of folks, because of my videos, because of my takes on a lot of this stuff, a lot of people think I'm rooting for AI, and I don't necessarily take that stance. I just don't believe that there's anything that can be done to stop it. I think that there's going to be very powerful people who are extremely motivated to get this stuff off the ground. There's a lot of profit in it for them, and I don't think that laws are even going to stop them. So I don't think that this is I think it's an eventuality more than it is people's goals. It's inevitable in the way that I look at it. So I wanted to start there because I did pick that up today. Let's take a look at some of the other stuff happening in the world of stable diffusion. Smart bird feeders. China is building a parallel generative. Let's take a look at that. China building a generative parallel AI universe. This is interesting because I do remember covering the Ernie VILG. That was already supposed to be bigger than Stable Diffusion, and I'm wondering if Stable Diffusion 2 or 2.1 in any way even freaked out China. I'll be honest, on our end, it didn't. For the world of people who are interested in generating AI art, 2.0 was actually a huge step back in the world of what we want in terms of our freedom. Um, and 2.1, I think, was another maybe step in the right direction, but built off of the misstep of 2.0. Uh, the 1.5 model that's still out there, in my opinion, is still one of the best and one of the easiest to build off of in terms of like dream booth models and things like that. But I'm wondering if China even has some of those same issues. A lot of those version numbers are almost like they're almost representative of just stuff that was happening at the time anymore. Because 2.0 is not better than 1.5. That's I mean, maybe in certain things, but I did side by side comparisons of everything, and when it came to actually like making non people related things, I'll give it to 2.0. But when it came to like actual faces and bodies and all that other stuff, like it was very obvious that without that extra data, the model suffered. For anyone who wasn't super familiar with what was happening, 2.0 was an attempt to remove like faces and celebrities and names and like artists and things like that, like the tags, like from the model. Didn't work well. Monetizing is the thing that I think everyone's going to struggle with. They are going to have a hard time charging for something that they gave us for free. That's the reality of the world. They're also going to have a hard time taking back something that they give us for free, which, we learned a lot of lessons in the United States from prohibition. You try to make something illegal that people are freely using, and they won't listen. They'll do everything they can to just keep using it. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how laws develop and how things progress over time, because people aren't just going to blindly listen. And even if in the United States there were laws to prevent copyright related things and stuff like that, like a lot of people are vying for because they're short sighted, there are other countries, that won't be affected whatsoever. Like, for example, how much do you care about copyright law in X country? You know, does Canadian copyright law affect you, or Brazilian copyright law, or Costa Rican? And I think people from those other countries are going to be they're going to feel the same way in reverse. What laws we change here don't actually hurt or affect them in any meaningful way. So I think a lot of the people, I understand a lot of the arguments of AI artists, but I do feel like there's just not, there's a necessary evil to change. And unfortunately, there are going to be careers that fall by the wayside when new technologies develop. There always have been. I'm not saying that's what's going on. There's going to be a great number of digital artists that literally just embrace the AI art and become the next wave of AI artists, or the next wave of artists in general. But certainly the people who refuse to learn whatever the new technology is are going to get stomped by it. That's kind of normal, right? You know what we'll do? I'm going to watch what is it called? The End of Art. So, first things first. Steven Zapata. Okay, so I understand Steven Zapata is an art instructor. His job, because people pay him money, is to teach art. And school education in the modern world is an investment. Art, as a career, if you're going to pay someone to teach it to you, is meant to, you're supposed to learn things and how art is going to pay for itself. So before I even start this video, I need you to understand that from my perspective in the world of education, the concept of being an educator, I think you're doing a huge disservice by telling people that, like, look, I'm going to continue to teach you, like, this is a dying art. I think that's counterproductive. And to be honest, it's just really not sensible. Like, teach people how to make money within the world of art. That's your job as a professor, as an art professor specifically, not just teaching them how to draw. That's crazy. You can learn how to do that for free. Okay, let's stop here, Steve. Even at double speed, you're using so many unnecessary words that didn't need to be said. Like, you're just filling space. I love actually that this video started not by just saying that AI art is not art, because I agree. Art is in the eye of the beholder. Like, you can literally just call whatever you want art, and you are, as the artist, the person who can make that distinction. So far, we have covered absolutely nothing.
Where it starts.
Okay, so what he said is true. There isn't compensation being given for data that's being scraped. However, the things that are being scraped from are not being sold. And that's, I think, a hugely important distinction is that people are posting images onto the internet for free for public view and for public use. They're not charging for these things. They're not charging the platforms that they post them on. The platform is not charging them to store them there either. And I think that's an important consideration too if we're talking about property and we're talking about, that type of thing. But most importantly, like nobody, even on the AI art side, is profiting from this work. So when we talk about things like giving credit, especially when copyright isn't being utilized here, I mean, we're not making copies. We're talking about like recreations that are diffused. So we'll get into that since it's you very clearly said you're not an AI art expert or ML expert. So we're not going to go too deep into that. But so far, again, we really haven't talked about anything of import.
Everyone. And I am baffled by my friends and peers who are looking into the mouth of the lion and saying it might be hospitable in there after all because they glimpsed some bits of food stuck to the teeth. I am as aware as you are that false certainty about monumental technological events like these doesn't mean much in the whirling maelstrom of history. But we must recognize that kneeling to this brute fact does not always make us wise. Rather, it renders us mute and docile. And that is the last thing we as artists need right now. We must be willing to defend ourselves, each other, and our work, even though these AI companies will try to cast us as whiny and ungrateful. Don't let them control the narrative and lull you into compliance. We should be...
For the record, the companies weren't the ones that made you guys look whiny or ungrateful. It was the whiny and ungrateful posts. Actually, ungrateful is the wrong word. I don't want to even use that. Because there's nothing to be grateful for. There just isn't. Your skill set is awesome. It's cool. It's something that a lot of people wish they could do. But your skill set is being absorbed by machine learning just like everyone else's is. This is the new world. Whether you are an artist, whether you're a musician, whether you're a coder, whether you're a writer, singer, people are going to be, this is what machine learning is. It is a learning process where machines are going to learn as much about the human existence and the human condition as possible. Art is not one of the most important things out there in terms of like things that machines could even learn. It's one of the most simplistic things that a machine can learn, which is why it's one of the first things that we are learning. It's actually more impressive to be able to do like critical thinking and things like that. So those are going to be the next phases when we see art combined with stuff like critical thinking, and it won't be as much of a recreation because it's going to be completely unique, and that'll be a different conversation.
Whatever you see your friends doing, whatever you hear from the desperate and the scared, do not join them in their bovine acquiescence. The giant companies designing and releasing these systems are manipulating the narrative, and they are depending on our ritual suicide. As has happened in so many other arenas, they are going to let you fight their war for them and have a snap.
Bovine acquiescence, ritual suicide.
Snapping at each other for picked over bones like hyenas. They are going to make you comfortable with artistic cannibalism on a scale unheard of before now. Let's use a very popular one as our example, Lion, one of the dataset collections that was used to train the current versions of Stable Diffusion and Google's Imagen.
For the record, I did look. Steven Zapata, not a part of the Lion database.
Under these exemptions are now funneling into for-profit commercial ventures like Stable Diffusion. And wouldn't you know who funded a large part of Lion's processing power to create this dataset? That's right, Stability AI, the makers of Stable Diffusion.
Don't get me started on the money. If you follow the money, you're going to find the corruption. But those are the guys that are really out to get you, when it comes to people making money off of the art. Now, this, I think, is where I think a lot of the AI artists and myself agree. And I think that's surprising to a lot of people, considering how big of an enemy I was to a lot of people or how targeted I was. But I don't agree with people like Emad being able to make tons of money off of other people's artwork. And so that part is definitely wrong. But that's also not something that can be changed. It's something that it's Pandora's box. It has been opened. Machine learning as a technology is not going to go away. It's like trying to unteach somebody how to make fire. Like, the damage is done. So now we have to exist within a world that this happened, or that this is a capable technology.
Profit and a non-profit, which we are calling a capped profit company, end quote. Isn't that a shame? That no other pre-existing legal structure works for them. Poor guys. At least they were brave enough to invent.
I can't watch this whole video. I'm sorry. It is boring as shit. You are drawing trash and just talking for 45 minutes. I cannot do this. Let me nutshell this based off of the arguments that you've made here, because that we can do. So, first off, the AI collects references from the internet the same way artists do. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if your argument was that it doesn't, but that's what it does. And it's not a person. I think people keep thinking AI is actual artificial intelligence, and it's not even remotely intelligent. It's not even intelligence. It's literally just machine learning. It is a database of diffused data that's not actually even the picture data. So let me wax a little nerd here for a minute. So the idea with I take a picture of a sunset and I show it to a machine learning model. That picture of the sunset isn't going to be saved into the model. It's just not. If I were to tell the model to recreate the sunset, it's going to use biases that it looked at and it analyzed to do its best to try to recreate something that was similar. But if you just look at, let's use your points against you in terms of, you talked about how large the Lion database is. Think about how large a model would be if it actually stored any of those data. If you're going to make the argument that you can't even copy and paste that and put it onto a blog because, well, that's not what's happening here either. The model doesn't contain that data. Never will. It's not designed to. It's going to, basically, the way that it works is I will show a model two different faces, and I'll tell this model, these are faces. And it's going to look at how they look, and it's going to compare them against each other. And it's going to, the more faces that I give it, the better and better idea it will have as far as what a face could be. But the problem with what you were suggesting with limiting what we give to a model is it will make it more likely that it is an almost exact copy of things that it is trained on. That's the problem. The benefit of AI comes from giving it a bunch of crap, a bunch of stuff that may or may not even make sense. We have to almost overtrain it so that it understands that an ice cream cone is not a basketball. And that's where a lot of the glitching and the weirdness comes from. And when we train an AI model, that's what's going on. So in the way that an AI collects references from the internet, yeah, that's what's going on. AI is just a new tool. That's argument number 2 here. Yeah. So the magic eraser inside of Photoshop was a new tool at once too. And also the magic eraser inside of Photoshop uses a form of machine learning. Just like James Cameron used a form of machine learning when he created Avatar 2. And people weren't lined up or trying to riot to stop him. Just like the game High on Life uses machine learning from Midjourney. To create concept art and to actually create in-game assets. Yeah, it's a new tool and it's already being used professionally within the real world. Artists need to focus on telling stories. Literally no one's making that argument. So that's a stupid argument. Next one. These companies cannot manipulate our access to these systems because of open source projects. What? I'm hesitant to actually click and listen to what you're... All right. What? You start to wax poetic. I'm going to pause this so quick. Okay, so all of that is just outdated information at this point. Um, Stable diffusion is now one of the more versatile things that you could make, and actually, there's a ton of different models. Like I would probably estimate thousands of different flavors of models. Everything from, Sam does art flavored models, which are there's lots of those now. But there's also tons of different models for things like I want to make pictures that look like Pixar, for example. I want that stylized 3D model look, or I want specific rendering engines. What was it? Red Light Shift, Redshift, from NitroSock recently, and that was like 2 months ago. That was a basically a rendering engine Dream Booth type of special. So because of Dream Booth, because of tools, and that was actually a Google creation from my understanding, and it was designed originally with ImGen in mind. But it seems like that tool has kind of defeated this particular talking point, if that was the original direction that you were talking about. Um, and the battle is so multi-pronged at this point too, and I think that's the other part that AI artists should understand is that I don't necessarily need to use your art to make my AI art look exactly like your art if I wanted to, for example. There's nothing at all that would stop me from just asking an intermediary artist to just simply draw something like yours, or I could just trace. There's tons of workarounds for legalities. All right, so let's move on. Don't people do the same thing with reference as the AIs do? Yes. In fact, I challenge you to show me one of your pieces of art that isn't derivative. And if you can show me something completely original that you put all of the original thought into and you didn't build off of the knowledge of others, and that, show me that art and show me where you gave, actually, don't show me that art. Show me any other piece of art, but show me that you've credited literally every single person that gave you like derivative ideas. And that's the argument that a lot of people are unfortunately trying to make against anyone trying to create AI art. And it's frustrating, as you can imagine. The AI can never replicate the soul of an artist. No one's saying that they could. That would be a weird claim. The dance diffusion problem, I don't know what problem that would be, so I'm not even going to go there. And then conclusion. So in conclusion, I'm concluded. I am finally done with this video. This is good enough for me. I don't feel, and maybe it's potentially because a couple of months have passed, and a lot of these talking points are, no longer valid. Let's take a look at the did the fundraiser fund. Oh man, it's like you just missed your window, man. Sorry. Look at that, $5,000. Somebody was super serious about that. Well, this is GoFundMe, so you got sent money anyway, didn't you? What did you use that for? Because like it didn't did it stop AI art, or did you just take money from artists? See, this is the type of thing that I actually have the problem. This is the thing that I'm actually fighting. So I think that's enough of the end of art. This video, this argument. I'm done with this.